In this week's episode of Studio Inter, we'll be analysing the derby della Madonnina with James Horncastle. We'll be previewing the upcoming games against Lazio and Sampdoria, this week's Moratti, Moggi and Frog, and much, much more. Everything here on Studio Inter, on SempreInter.com.
Per De Vrij, c'è la torre per Messina, l'ha presa! L'ha ripresa Messina! L'ha ripresa Messina! Il toro! Il toro! Il toro! Il tiro! Samir! Madonnina! La recupera Brozovic, andiamo in contropiede, la porta è vuota, tira, attenzione, e gol!
Benvenuti to another edition of Studio Inter. I'm your host Nima Tavallaey, wishing you welcome to a beautiful week after a emphatic derby win, which was we're gonna get into all of that. But before we do, I'm gonna welcome my panelists coming back from his what felt like a 6-month-long, most luxury holiday ever of Italy I've ever witnessed on social media. Our good friend, Mr. Michael Gallo.
Hey, Nima. Sorry for bombarding everybody with my vacation, but yeah, I'm back from Italy. I'm just getting used to the Eastern time zone again, and yeah, I got one Inter game in when I was there, and didn't go the way we wanted to do, but it was a great time at the Miazza, and I'm happy to be back on the show, and looking forward to today's episode.
Yeah, good to have you back. And I just want to say I absolutely did not hate you when you were in Piedmont in those vineyards walking around. I just wanted to say that I was absolutely not jealous, and I was not hating on you then. Right. I'd also like to welcome our good friend, Mr. Will Beckman.
Good evening.
How are you?
Fine. I'm great.
Oh, Jesus. Okay.
Under promise, over deliver.
Okay, for sure. Brilliant. And we're also joined by the preview writer for SempreInter.com, Mr. Mo Nassar. How are you, Mo?
Hey, I'm pretty good. Looking forward to another, hopefully, cracking episode. So, yeah, great to be here.
And we have a special guest with us today, all the way from he was yesterday, or he was actually 2 days ago. He was at the San Siro watching Inter completely wipe the floor with Milan. He's got the best set of hair in all of football journalism. Welcome back again, Mr. James Horncastle.
Thank you, Nima. For now. Lord only knows, when my dad's baldness will take, sort of afflict me. So I've got to hold on to it while I can.
Yeah, you're doing a great job of it. I got to say that. I used to have locks like that as well, but then age kind of made me realize that I had to cut it short. Either way, good to have you with us. And I'd like to start on the derby. I mean, you were there at the game, of course. Milan were the home game. We're the home team. I have to say, I'm keen to hear what you think of this. I mean, even throughout the years of all the Milan derbies, even when one team has destroyed the other team in terms of results, I can't remember a Milan derby where one team simply didn't show up and turn up the way that Milan simply didn't turn up. Do you agree with that?
Yeah, I mean, even going back to last season, I think it was the second Madonnina. Milan didn't show up in the first half, but boy, they did in the second half in that 3-2 win for Inter. So I was kind of expecting a reaction in the second half, primarily because it's been long forgotten now. I felt that Milan ended the first half with actually some momentum, in that they had those two kind of chances, counter-attacks, one with Suso stealing the ball off Sensi pretty much near Milan's own corner flag and running up the pitch, and then making a terrible decision as to what to do with the ball, and then Leao putting that cross in for Piontek. And I thought, okay, maybe there's very faint flickers here. And of course, as soon as the second half begins, Inter score, and they deserve to be in front on the balance of play for much of the first half anyway. But I think that's what disappointed me in terms of Milan's performance, in that they never got going. They never troubled Samir Handanovic. And there was just such a marked contrast between them and Inter, particularly in midfield, where Milan looked so wooden, static. They didn't look like they had any ideas, really, in terms of. One thing that really stood out for me watching, in the gods at San Siro was you just see how much off the ball movement there is from Sensi. Sensi he must be an absolute pain in the arse to play against because he is always calling for the ball. He's always making runs. He either wants it under pressure or he's running off the back of the midfield player. And if the midfield player doesn't go, then Conti, who was playing on the right-hand side, has to think, well, I can't actually, get forward and, join in the attack when my team has the ball, because if we lose it, then Sensi's in behind. And that really struck me, that Inter, clearly every player knew exactly what they had to do. They knew that they had, 2, 3, 4 options. And if one wasn't on, if two wasn't on, they had something else. And they looked so assured. It was pretty demoralizing if you're a Milan fan. And even if you're a neutral, you want it to be a competitive spectacle. And it was so one-sided.
Yeah, exactly. Mike, did you have a question for James?
Look, I thought Milan was actually playing pretty well towards that end of that first half. He mentioned the Suso chance. I thought that was a very good counterattack, but at the end, Suso had a man on the left-hand side that I thought he should have probably passed it to earlier. James, what do you think went wrong for Milan in the second half? Do you think going back from the match against Slavia Prague, I felt Slavia Prague did a very good job in terms of putting pressure on the Inter players and not allowing them to build up anything from the back. Now, I think Inter kind of used that and actually did it really well against Milan. They put a lot of pressure and not allowed to get much coming back from Donnarumma or the defense. Would you say that kind of gave them some problems?
I was impressed with how Inter pressed at the beginning of the game. I think there was that chance where Lautaro, I think, stole the ball from Çalhanoğlu. There was a bad back pass, which again I think Lautaro ended up sliding in on Donnarumma for. I think that a lot of people in the Italian media were saying that Milan should kind of copy what Slavia Prague did against Inter in the Champions League. But that just goes against Gianpaolo's kind of principles, and he is a manager who likes his team to defend high and press, but their reference point is always the ball, not the man. Slavia Prague man marked Inter in that game all over the pitch, apart from Souček, who was essentially there just screening the balls into the strikers, into Lukaku and into Lautaro. And you could see that in this game, Milan were kind of set up zonally, really, aside from the man that they were looking to put on Suso, and they were never able to get a kind of press going. And I think that again is kind of credit to how comfortable Inter are with themselves, who they are in terms of what their game plan is, and just this is the best Inter midfield since the treble. And to be honest, that's not hard.
What do you mean? Whatever do you mean? Kuzmanovic, Schelotto, whatever do you mean?
but it is, and those guys have character. Again, I go back to Sensi. Sensi's always talking. He's always, if one of his teammates gets fouled, he's over there. He's in, the guy who made the foul. He's in his ear. He's in the referee's ear. I thought Barella was better in this game, and he has got better, particularly in the last week, because he's had a slow start to his career. I thought in the second half of this game, before he was taken off, there was so much little niggling things that he did to disrupt Milan's what little possession game that they had, and obviously he put the ball in for Lukaku. the three in midfield were brilliant. I thought, and that has got to be really encouraging when you also think, Inter, aside from maybe Brozovic, they've got good cover for those guys. I'm pretty sure Conte will. Well, he really wants to make a project out of Gagliardini. He wants to revive Gagliardini and get him back to the kind of the player that we saw when he initially joined Inter, where he still had that momentum from Atalanta. And also Vecino, who I thought in the first couple of games, and remember in the last derby of last season, the 3-2, he was magnificent in that game. The only player that they lack cover for in midfield is Brozovic, although Sensi could play in that position as he did in the first half of last season at Sassuolo. So, I just felt that Milan could never get any kind of press going, and their midfield is just so one-dimensional at the moment. And I think the criticism that is going to come Gianpaolo's way is that why aren't you integrating these new signings at a quicker rate? Because if you look around the league, Inter, I think, had 4 new signings in that team that played on Saturday night. They look like they've been playing for Inter for years already. And you look at, even Napoli, for example, with some of the players that have come in there, Di Lorenzo, Llorente, Lozano, they've all scored already, or they've all done something meaningful. And you look at Milan, and like none of their new signings have done anything. Yeah, in part because Benasser was the only one who started against Brescia. Leao was the only one who started in the derby. And then players come on and have 15, 20 minutes and show something. Aside from that, nothing. And Inter just looks so much further along than Milan, and they are starting from different bases. But let's not forget there was only a point between them at the end of last season. So I mean, it looks like the gulf. There's such a big gulf that has opened up there. So I think that it's no. As I wrote in my piece after the game, we know who runs this city. We've known it for a long time now. Inter is 7 games unbeaten in the derby. It's become a non-contest, and it's the question mark is does this team have what it takes to win the league for the first time since 2010? And I think that there are certainly signs that this is going to be the most competitive Inter we've seen since 2011 really.
Yeah, true. Mo, did you have a question for James?
Yeah, James, I just I wanted to ask something about Milan. We keep seeing Milan underperform for quite a long time, and we keep hearing the media talking about Paqueta is the next best thing, Çalhanoğlu this, Suso that. Is it just a case of maybe the Italian media blowing up these players too much, and the squad isn't as good or as high quality as we think they are? So this is just a question that I was thinking about. And then another thing regarding your presence in the stadium. For me, Lautaro has been bright so far, but he seems to be just half a step away from completing a great move every time he's on the ball. Is that the sort of sense that you got watching him play live? What do you think of Lautaro, having seen him play this season?
Well, I must confess, I probably said this on the podcast before that I'm a big Lautaro fan. I think he's a really intelligent player because I remember, and this feels like an awful long time ago now, but Allegri once said of Moratti, one of the things he liked about Moratti was that Moratti can play with practically any other centre forward or strike partner. He can play, in a front 3 out wide. He can play on his own in attack. He can play in a partnership with another striker next to him. And Lautaro, for me, is someone who is able, through his intelligence, to instantly strike up a good strike partnership or whatever with whoever he's playing with. And I think we saw that in last season's derby, where he was really important in that win. And I think we see it again with Lukaku, because Lautaro came back late from the Copa America. He didn't do a full preseason. We didn't see any of him in preseason. Remember, it was the Samuele Longo Esposito partnership that was, instilling fear around the world. But in that Lecce game, they look good. He does certain things, like he does this move where he will call for the ball. And it will come to him, and he runs over it and leaves it for a striker. He does things like that where he just knows where his teammate, his striker, is. Now, I think, he's a little bit rough around the edges. He's missed some big chances over the course of his career at Inter, but I think with time and with game time in particular, it'll come together. I mean, we saw him score a hat-trick for Argentina against Mexico, and Mexico are no mugs. That's a good team that he's put 3 goals past. For a team that you think of the number of strikers that they've tested out, and Aguero, Higuain, and they just they can't seem to find the right fit. I think he's a really smart player. Is the long and the short of it. As with Milan, I think there is an element of putting the horse before putting the cart before the horse in the judgment of some of their players. I think Suso. I always find it a little bit bemusing that Suso is built up as Milan's best player. He's been decisive in derbies before. He's had good runs, but I tell you what, second half of last season, he was anonymous for a long stretch of that. He had a very good first 2 or 3 months of the season, and then very little. Yeah. And Piontek, my doubts about him being able to back up what he did last season for club and country, scored more than 30 goals in a different system, which I don't think is suited to him. And also, I kind of made this point earlier today that you look at the strikers that Milan have got now. Aside from Piontek, they don't have an orthodox or even like kind of someone who you'd say is a number 9, but with maybe a different skill set, because Rebic isn't a striker. Leao isn't a striker. These are all kind of wide forwards who like to come inside and cut inside onto their favourite boot and shoot or do people for pace and that sort of thing. They've sold Andre Silva. They've sold Cutrone. If it doesn't work out with Piontek, what's the fallback option here? Getting goals from midfield, which, from what I've been told, when they were analysing the squad over the summer, they looked at it and they felt, we don't have midfielders who score goals. Kessie scores goals, but Kessie scores goals from the penalty spot, not from midfield. And again, Çalhanoğlu is someone who's Cristiano Ronaldo, like in taking low percentage shots from long range. They've really missed Bonaventura. I would like to see Milan, Gianpaolo be braver in midfield, play Krunic, who we've seen nothing of so far. Krunic has played under Gianpaolo before, knows what he wants. Play Benacer, play Paquetá, and play Bonaventura if and when he's fit, and see what the midfield looks like then. Because I think then you might get more goals, a bit more creativity, a bit of freshness. I mean, Benacer and Krunic played together all last year, played some brilliant football for Empoli. I think Paquetá is a bit raw and needs to kind of nail down what his best position is. But I think there's certainly technique there. And Bonaventura is someone who will get you goals and get into the box from midfield and help out. So I think that's what I'm kind of looking to see from them. But yeah, I mean, I think Romagnoli, for example, has had a difficult start to the season. Dropped by Mancini against Finland, culpable for letting Lukaku get goal side of him for the second goal in the derby. And Donnarumma's been their best player this season. So I'd say of all the players that they've got who are hyped up, the one who is living up to the hype is Donnarumma, and that's got nothing to do with Gianpaolo. That's him, his goalkeeping coach, and being in a more stable environment as to knowing where his future lies, and just being the Donnarumma that we wanted to see and hope to see. The rest is a work in progress, and there's a hell of a lot of work to do.
Agree. Will, did you have a question for James?
Yes, I did. I had one prepared, and then I've just thought of another one. So I'll pop them both in. By the way, you try telling Milan Twitter that Suso is their most dangerous attacking player. You'll need a shield and some armour. From what I saw from the one. Honestly, they hate him. I went and had a look after the match on Saturday. So, yeah, that is a very odd thing.
Separates... this is the thing, right? Like, I don't understand why they didn't sell him in the summer. Because they could have got good money for him, right? 35, 40 million. Which they then could have used to sign Correa, who they really wanted. You know, it was Correa or nothing, and then they signed Rebic, weirdly. And
worse than nothing somehow.
I don't understand why you appoint a manager who plays a very specific style of football, which doesn't have a place for it, for a winger in it, and you're asking him to play number 10. And one of the things that really struck me throughout this game is, initially, you know, Suso does what he's told, which is, you know, follow Brozovic around. Don't give Brozovic any kind of space to breathe. Don't let him lift his head up. Don't let him receive the ball. Yeah, after 20, 25 minutes, he's like, I'm going to go back on the right, you know. I'm going to go back there because that's where I like playing. And that's going to continue. You know, that's just, in some respect, muscle memory. In some respect, it's the player believing he's better out there and thinking he can affect the game out there. And I don't think it's conducive to Gianpaolo's system succeeding with him in it, even though he played well in pre-season and convinced Gianpaolo he can play in that position. And, you know, Gianpaolo basically took him off the market when he said, I'd die for Suso, against Milan social media, Milan Twitter. I'd die for him and I'm in love with him. So, you know, I mean, it feels like one of those summer romances, which, you know, you all know is going to lead to a breakup sometimes.
He's the biggest square peg in a round hole that I've seen in a football team in a while. He just has no place in that team. I think he's the kind of player that people who don't watch Milan every week think is good all the time, but actually isn't. Anyway, that's not what I was going to ask. What I was going to ask was, number one, perhaps on the basis of what you've seen in the first few games this season, what is a successful season for Inter in terms of sort of results across all competitions? Because I'm not sure. And the other thing is, I wanted an opinion on Diego Godin, because there's been quite a hornet's nest caused by one of Gazzetta's journalists. Because
speaking of Twitter panels,
he had the temerity to give him a 6 in the player ratings on Sunday, and it's
wasn't
caused
a 6
an almighty backlash. No, it was a 6. It was a 6. He said most of Inter's problems came on that side, and Leao was good against him, etc. and so on. So, what would you have given Godin in terms of a rating?
I think I would have gone higher than a 6. I think it's 7 for me, just because I think one of the reasons why Leao got the kind of rating that he did, and people were eager to write about Leao after the game. People, let's say, who was allocated 300 words to write something positive about Milan, he was the only positive. And I remember, I think it was in the first 5 minutes or so, Leao got the ball and took on Godin and beat him for pace down the byline. But Godin stayed with him and seemed to foul Leao, but was clever enough to get the free kick given his way. And I thought that set the tone for the match. I felt there were times when you thought that Leao was going to get past him or beat him, and I think he did on one occasion. I think he spun him and then counted. But on the whole, I thought it was pretty streetwise experienced performance from Godin, and I am surprised by that, because from everything that I was told about his season with Atletico Madrid last year, it felt like there was a genuine risk that Inter were getting another Vidic, and instead I've been impressed with what I've seen from him so far. I remember in the Cagliari game, for example, there was this idea that he was they were happy to leave Godin with the ball. Let Diego Godin build up from the back, because he can't pass, and he's passed it, and he ends up setting up the goal that wins the game. Sorry, it was the game against Udinese. That's the one I'm thinking of. For Sensi's header.
And the second goal at the weekend.
And the second goal in the derby.
Pre-assist.
Pre-assist. Yeah, exactly. Which is him comfortable stepping out from the back, switching it, and yeah. So yeah, by all means, let him have all the time on the ball in the world. He'll keep hurting you by the looks of it with the ball, which is, I think, again, is something that people maybe didn't expect from him. But again, that into defence is something that I think, again, just already last year was encouraging, and you looked at the personnel that they've got and you thought that should be very good, and it is very good. And I think Godin has added to that because I think they've got so many good options. I mean, in pre-season, one of the things that stood out for me, I thought maybe Bastoni is going to get an opportunity here, because Bastoni is the only left-footed centre back in that back three, or the centre backs that they've got. Because and seeing Skriniar playing on the right side, on the left side of it, being a right footer, I thought that looks maybe a little bit awkward. And instead, Skriniar's been very good. I mean, again, another feather in his cap that he can play there, even though it's on his weaker side. But yeah, they've got options there. And again, you'll have spoken about this on your recent podcast, but it's not only Candreva, but when De Vrij gets injured in the warm-up for that first game, and you're like, oh God, who's going to have to play there? And Ranocchia comes in and plays 2 games and does nothing wrong. You're like, Jesus Christ, what's this? This is a concern for everybody else in the league, I think.
Right. I just wanted to, before we let you go, I wanted you to predict how the Serie A will end from positions 1 to 6. All the European side,
God, no.
Yeah, no, you have to. Everyone does it. Come on.
Okay.
And Capocannoniere and the Coppa Italia winner and Supercoppa winner. We're going all the way. We want everyone's.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay. So I'm going for Inter, Campione d'Italia.
Is that a guffata?
No. 'Cause my team's not going to win the league.
But they'll finish in the top 4.
Well, I mean, just let me get to that. Let me get to that. So I think Inter will win the league, just because I think it will be very closely contested. But I think Conte will give Sarri very little margin for error. I think if Sarri needs a month, 6 weeks, 2 months to get the team where he wants it to be, that's too long. Because I don't think Conte will be gone. I don't think we'll see Inter open an 8 or 10 point gap. I mean, that's just crazy. But Conte's experience in multiple leagues, multiple different jobs of getting a team instantly ready to compete speaks for itself. So Inter, Juve, Napoli.
And
well, I mean, the last few weeks give me conviction that it should be Roma.
Without a shadow of a doubt for me. I mean, I don't. It's not even a doubt. I mean, the only teams that right now that I look, it's Fiorentina and Lazio. It's not going to be Milan. It's not going to be Atalanta. I mean, come on.
Fiorentina, winless in 18 games.
Oh, come on.
Relegation.
Come on.
I'm with James there.
Yeah. No. Come on. It's
Montella isn't won since the year 4 AD in Serie A.
Come on. He's played Napoli, Atalanta, and Juventus, and he's got 2 draws. I mean, come on. He's got the 3-5-2 working as well. Now, for me, it's Fiorentina and Lazio who are gonna threaten Roma, but Roma are too strong.
I'm just glad you didn't say Torino. I've had enough of the media. They actually every year Torino will be the surprise guys, and then what's happened? 8th, 7th, 8th, and then
it's Cazzari. It's Cazzari.
It's just unbearable.
No. So James, come on, it's number 4.
So four is Roma. 4 is Roma.
Bravo.
5. I'm going. Oh Jesus. I'm I'm tempted to throw a kind of hipstery kind of thing in.
Torino.
Not Torino.
Fifth Bologna.
Oh, I can see that.
Oh.
Sixth Lazio.
Yeah. Okay. Who will win the Coppa Italia?
Roma.
Nice one. Who'll win the Supercoppa?
Does anyone care?
Yeah.
Right answer.
Well, yeah. If someone other than Juventus wins it, it's meaningful. Montella, as you'll be saying, Nima. I mean, he won it. He won it with Milan. So Supercoppa. Remind me who's going to be playing that again? Juventus and Lazio.
Yeah.
That's got Simone Inzaghi written all over it. That's Simone Inzaghi with another trophy. 3 trophies. And
Capocannoniere. Yeah.
Capocannoniere. Dries. It's got to be Ciro. It's got to be Ciro.
Oh. Ciro Mertens or Ciro Immobile?
Given my experience of the sat amongst the Laziali for the Rome derby, it will definitely not be Ciro Immobile. Ciro Immobile will find ways to miss, to hit the post, to hit the bar. Ciro Immobile should win the Capocannoniere Crown by about 10 goals, but alas, he won't. I'm trying to think if there's anyone else. I mean, I would probably say it would be between Dries and Duvan. I think ultimately.
No Cristiano then.
No, I think Cristiano. Watching Cristiano this season, I think he had lots of chances against Parma first half. Not all really clear-cut chances, but didn't take them. I think Higuain has a better chance of scoring more goals for Juventus than Cristiano does in the league this season.
Right. So thank you so much for coming on. And if people want to follow you on Twitter, and if you got something coming on, like something special you're publishing, that you feel free to plug it.
No, I'm in all the kind of usual places. You can find my stuff on ESPN. And if you're in the UK, BT Champions League Goal Show is back when the Champions League is on. Best way to get over into drawing with Slavia Prague is to watch multiple games at the same time. That's pretty much it at the moment.
Thank you so much, James. Always a pleasure to have you. Thanks for coming on.
Pleasure, guys.
Ciao. Buona serata. Right, that was James Horncastle. As always, a pleasure. I thought we discussed the derby a little bit more, just us four. For me, the way I look at the derby is, I was expecting, as I said last week, I said maybe we could, the way things were going, Inter were going to win by a blowback, like a complete blowout. And to be honest, Inter should have won by at least 5-6 goals, because given the chances, given the dominance in midfield, and given Gianpaolo's complete inability to create any life in this team and any coherency, I think Inter they won not only comfortably and emphatically, but they should have won by more goals. What do you think, Mo?
Yeah, look, I think it's very strange, because normally after a derby win, I'm pumped, I'm happy, and the great feeling carries on for a few days. But it feels like this derby was a bit of a disappointment. The fact that we completely wiped the floor with Milan just made it feel a bit empty. I mean, I was super happy and fantastic, and it's a great performance and 4 wins, but it feels like it was so anticlimactic. When you said 4 or 5 goals last week, we all kind of took the mickey out of you, because who predicts that? But like you say, I mean, had 2 of those 3 very clear chances with the posts, D'Ambrosio or Politano or Candreva at the end gone in, it would have been that score that you had predicted, and it's kind of sad, you know. It's kind of sad when this is what happens to the derby. And I remember like 4 or 5 years ago when we spoke when we speak about the really really poor derbies, when both Inter and Milan, but at least both teams were suffering, but now it feels like, you know, it feels like the Torino, the derby in Torino, you know. It's so I'm very grateful for the win. I kind of hope that Milan become competitive quickly again, because this fixture for me is probably the most meaningful match in the entire league, in the entire season. I enjoy it more than the derby, the Derby d'Italia. There's the fact that we share the stadium, the whole thing about the derby is so meaningful, and it lacked any sense of that on Sunday night, on Saturday night. Yeah,
agreed. Mike, did you also feel that emptiness? Because I know what Mo was talking about here, because I felt it kind of too. I was a little bit like a little bit shocked. I wasn't like Mo said, jubilant. I was more like, because Milan were really really poor.
Yeah, so I mean, I think right when the final whistle went, I had that feeling of excitement. I was definitely happy. Inter played as well as I could have hoped them to play. But then, 10 to 15 minutes later afterwards, I was speaking to some of my Milanista friends, and they just had nothing to say. And I don't really like not having that much of a conversation with my Milanista friends. Not to shove it in their faces that that they lost the derby or anything. Just to have a conversation about the game. And they just had no motivation to even talk about the game. And I don't like that. I like this is one of the biggest derbies in the world of any country, and I think you need to have both teams playing at some competitive level. And I mean, of course, Milan had their chances, no doubt about it. You could tell there was just two different sides out there, and I much prefer it when we see a good Milan squad out there on the field and competing at a high level. And we didn't see that, and it's trying to have a conversation about the game with my friends. It wasn't. They weren't giving me much back. They might have watched the game, but they weren't excited to watch it because they kind of knew going in what kind of squad they have, and it's just not. They're good. They probably won't even compete for the top four this year. If they're lucky, if they're lucky, they'll be competing for a Europa League spot. That's pretty much where they lie, and that doesn't excite Milan fans. I mean, that wouldn't excite me as an Inter fan for sure. So
Absolutely.
that's my thoughts on it, and as much as they are Inter's rivals, I still want them to be better and competitive with the top clubs in Italy.
I mean, you're absolutely right. I mean, this is a unique derby. It's the only city derby that I can remember where you have two clubs that historically, consistently have battled for the league titles and for European glory. And the fact that they share this kind of cousin history and ancestry, and how the in one family you have two Interisti and two Milanisti, like that's very unique. And how this derby is always, the kind of derby where that is very glamorous, and it's Milan. It's very very representative of Milan. It's the La Scala del Calcio. All of that is kind of being lost here, and it's been going on for like a decade when both of these teams have been pretty awful. But I really hope that Milan gets their act together, because we need them. It's everyone. Nothing is cooler than going into a Scuderby, a derby that the Serie A can be decided by. And you used to have players. Milan used to have players like Ronaldinho, Ibrahimovic, Rivaldo. What do they have now? I mean, Piontek. I mean, what am I supposed to be excited about that? I mean,
Suso.
Yeah, I mean, a Liverpool reject who has like 3 good games every. I mean, no, it's not good. It's not good. And as Mo said, I think the analogy with Juventus Torino is exactly, and we don't want that. This is the Milan derby. I want to keep it that. I mean, the derbies we all remember. I mean, 3-2 derbies and these crazy derby games. We want that back. Will, what are your thoughts? you get to have the closing thoughts on the derby.
Well, I can give you a list of, and to put it into context, Leicester winning the Premier League, Suning taking over Inter, Kylian Mbappe breaking into football, the UK voting to leave the European Union, Donald Trump becoming president of the US, VAR. These are all things that hadn't happened the last time Inter lost a derby in the league. It's been quite a while. That's a tweet from Fulvio, by the way. I didn't make that list myself. So that's a good tweet. But I think it's the law of diminishing returns, isn't it? The strange thing is that when you have when you're pushed and it's a less convincing win in terms of the emphatic nature, you get more praise because it feels more hard earned. It feels like you've had to work harder for it. So I think I think that's why actually the strange thing about the reaction to this derby is that it's been pretty much most about how bad Milan were. I mean, look at us. We're an Inter podcast, and we've spent quite a lot of this pod already talking about how bad Milan are, because it feels like that's the stranger thing to come out of it. Very comfortable. Not too much to add, really. I think another reason that I personally wasn't that overjoyed was because there's another pretty tough game coming up pretty quickly. So we haven't got a huge amount of time to celebrate it, but not too much to add.
We're going to talk about that because I don't think the Sampdoria game is much to talk about because Eusebio Di Francesco is a walking disaster area. But I want to talk about the Lazio game because a lot of people have been saying Inter are going to win the Scudetto. For me, I still think that this is the honeymoon period of Conte. After the madness and craziness that was last year and all the chaos, having someone who decides what direction to go and having Marotta and the rest of the directors all also pulling in the same direction has kind of created a calm around Inter, and I think that's the honeymoon period that we're experiencing right now. For me to really seriously talk about anything, title winning or whatever, it is it's the games against Juventus and Lazio, because Lazio are a very good team. Granted, they're very Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde. You don't know they can play a fantastic game against you, and then they go and lose against Cluj in the Europa League, and have Laziali contemplating group suicide because they were so poor. But I still think that every time Lazio plays Inter at the San Siro, and every time Simone Inzaghi plays Inter at the San Siro, they really turn up, and they really turn up in a way where they try to hurt Inter's weaknesses, and this is what I'm worried about. He rested Lazzari. He brought off Immobile. Immobile's movement, sure, he misses a lot of chances, but his game has improved so much. His read of the game, his movement has improved so much. And this is a Milinkovic-Savic who I hope Inter sign at some point next summer, together with Federico Chiesa, who I am in love with. But no, in all seriousness, this is a game this will be Inter's biggest test so far in the Serie A, and I'm really and I don't think that it's one where they can maintain the perfect record. What do you think, Mo?
I think Simone Inzaghi will have looked at the Slavia Prague playbook and will have taken down all the notes, and will try and ape exactly what they did. He's going to play an ugly match, an anti-football match, a physical match, put high pressure, high press, try and disrupt Inter's playing out from the back. I think it's going to be a very tough and ugly anti-football sort of game. I think this is like a perfect game for Lulic to bring out the ugliest kind of footballer in him, which happens quite often, actually. But so I think, like you said, Nima, I agree. I think this is the toughest match that Inter will have faced so far. I just think that, or hope, the reason I might be a little bit more optimistic now is that I hope that Conte will have seen what Slavia Prague had done to us, and will have drilled the players into being able to soak up and play out from that sort of pressure better, and be able to manage the game better. But I think this is exactly how Lazio are probably going to line up against us on Wednesday night.
That's interesting. I agree with that. Will, who do you think is a key for Inter to stop in Lazio? Because Lazio can hurt us.
Yeah, this is without question the toughest match that we've had so far. I mean, Milan emotionally was the most important match, but as we've just discussed, the game turned out to be sort of a non-event. Another thing is that Simone Inzaghi is very good at preparing these kinds of matches. I remember that, the year that Napoli almost won the league under Sarri, that those two games that they had, they lost both of them 4-1, but for an hour or so, Napoli were flummoxed like they had never been flummoxed before because of the kind of the physical style of play and the tactical approach that he managed to concoct. They're a good team. Lazio can sort of giocare di rimessa. That's what they're saying. It's like sort of playing off the opponent. They're the best when they don't have to take the game to the opponents. Look, Milinkovic-Savic has hurt into before at San Siro. Luis Alberto and Immobile are the sort of triumvirate around which Lazio's play sort of has success. Luis Alberto in particular, I thought was really good in the derby a few weeks ago. I would fear him the most, particularly if Lazio were to repeat those kind of counter-attacks that Milan got on a couple of occasions in the derby. That was one area where we were slightly less than impeccable. It's going to be interesting because this will be pretty much a 3-5-2 versus 3-5-2. So there's probably going to be a lot of individual battles. So if you want to pick one, I wonder if Asamoah against Lazzari will be interesting because Lazzari is very good on the counter-attack. He was Spal's biggest attacking weapon for 3 or 4 years while he was there. So that could be key. I don't like the fact that this comes straight after the derby. I wonder if there's a slight risk of a come down. I hope not. I think if this is a good performance and a good win, then as you said, Nima, this really does reinforce title credentials and it encourages that sort of talk because this is a difficult sort of awkward match. It's come at a moment when Inter teams in the past could perhaps be complacent. So I think this is a very curious match that will tell us a lot more than any of the previous matches have told us.
Mike, what do you think? Like, do you agree with what Will said there that this could reinforce the talk of Inter winning the Serie A, or do you still want to wait a little bit?
Yeah, I mean, I'm not gonna jump too quickly to predict that Inter's this is their Scudetto year yet. I still want to see more against high quality teams for sure. I mean, yeah, they won the derby, but at the same time, they haven't played that top 4 team yet. And I'm interested to see if they're going to use the same lineup as they used against Milan. I'm not sure if it's going to be exactly the same or potentially does D'Ambrosio get another start in that right midfield again? I don't know. I mean, I really like what I saw from Politano last year, and I like what we've seen from him this year as a substitute. I feel that when he's on the field, he always makes a difference. So I'm not sure if that's the right spot for him to start in this game or not. But I definitely want to see more of him. And like Will said, that matchup on the left side with Asamoah, I thought Asamoah has played pretty well this year. But yeah, I mean, this is a game that I think that Inter has struggled with. Just having that game after the derby or after a Champions League match. They've struggled with in the past, in the last 6-7 years. But if they were to win this game, I think the confidence will be sky high. Even though it's at home and it's against a potential top 4 team in Lazio, I do think that if they were able to win it, you're going to see a very, very confident Inter, a very, very confident Inter Twitter. You're gonna see.
Oh, good.
Especially with Barcelona around the corner too, as well. I mean, it's still a couple weeks away, but that's definitely the 3 points would add a big confidence booster going into these next round of Champions League matches.
For sure. Prediction time then for the Lazio. I think 1-1. Immobile and Lukaku. What about you, Will?
Oh, I'm tempted by 1-1, but I'll put a positive spin. I think a defender might score for Lazio. Maybe a Cherby from a corner or something. And then equaliser from Barella, and then another goal from Lukaku. I don't know. I'd be very happy with any kind of win, to be honest. One thing that I should. We might see Alexis Sanchez in terms of, we're talking about new names. Sanchez and Biraghi are 2 names that are being linked with a start in this match. So
Yeah.
maybe Alexis can show us what he's made of.
I don't want to see Biraghi starting against Lazzari. I think that's not very nice. But yeah, other than that, Alexis for sure, because I think Lautaro needs a rest. Mo, any predictions?
Yeah, sadly, I'm going to have to go with the 1-1 as well. I think Lazio. I think the only chance that we get to win the game is if we score first and early, and then let them chase the game. But if we let them play their sort of match and they tighten things up, and it's just going to be a frustrating, annoying thing. Like Will says, they'll probably score off a defender, off a free kick, or off a set play, and then Sanchez was going to get clinch the draw or get the draw for us right at the end.
Mike?
Yeah, I mean, I would have said 1-1, but I don't want to go with the consensus of this panel.
Go against the stream.
Yeah, I mean that's kind of what I was leaning towards. But hey, let's go with a 2-1 victory. And I will say a defender will score in this game, but it will not be for Lazio. It'll be for Inter. So I do believe that we'll get one from either Godin or Skriniar in a 2-1 victory.
Ooh, nice one. Well, we do play Sampdoria on the Sunday in the Serie A.
Saturday.
Sorry, yeah, it's Saturday. Sorry, I forgot. Yeah,
it's a quick turnaround.
It really is. It's Lazio at home, and then it's Sampdoria away on the Saturday, and it's a Sampdoria that won against. They took their first win against a team that maybe isn't even poor, has also been in poor form, but not as poor form as they have been. Torino, they won 1-0 on this past weekend, but Sampdoria are a team that has been in a lot of trouble, especially this beginning part of the season with the club changes, with the rumored transfer sale of the club, which is never good for the stability of a club. And then you have Eusebio Di Francesco, who I am not a big fan of, to put it diplomatically. So this is a game that I think Inter should win 3-0. I don't want to, and this is a game where I want Conte to go out there and stamp his mark. I want Inter, I expect Inter to go out there and play like Conte taught them to. And completely dominate and set the rhythm and do what they did against Milan, because Sampdoria and Milan are on the same level in terms of the quality, I think. Not on the bench. Gianpaolo is a better coach than Di Francesco, but in terms of quality on the pitch, I feel that Milan is not too much better than Sampdoria. So I'd say 3-0. I'd say 3-0 there, and I'd like to see Lazaro play and score. So I'll say a goal by him, a goal from Godin, and a goal from Barella. Will?
Samp at Marassi, I don't think is normally a cakewalk. I know there was a 5-0 win a couple of years ago, but that was a bit odd. Samp are, in theory, a good opponent because their defence is leaking from every possible orifice at the moment. Jason Murillo is an even worse player than he was when he was last playing in Italy. Murru has been a disaster. But they changed system the weekend. They found a bit of momentum. They'll need a good performance. So I don't think it will be simple. I'm kind of reliant on Di Francesco doing well at Samp because I thought that would be a good fit. Clearly, it hasn't been so far. I would take a 1-0 win, especially given that it's the third sort of fairly tough game at the end of a week. So I'm not expecting a scintillating performance, particularly if the Lazio game is a stressful one. I'm happy with 1-0 and, I don't know, Skriniar. I'm liking the defender goals.
Yeah, cool. Mo?
Yeah, I think it all depends on how we do against Lazio midweek. I think if it's a draw, if it's not a win, then I think we're going to thump Sampdoria, like you said. But if we manage to sneak a win, I think Conte is going to take his foot off the gas a bit and probably be like a 1-0, like Will predicts, kind of like the Udinese game. A well-managed, low-effort 1-0 before the big midweek match. So. I'll stick to the 1-0, and I think maybe Lautaro's up for a goal, so I'll put Lautaro for a goal at 1-0.
I think that's a very good point about the midweek matches. Like that's gonna just not for Samp as well. They're going to be away at Fiorentina, so that will definitely condition how how both teams play that match. If we
No.
win both games, then that would be extremely impressive, I think.
I just hope that Fiorentina don't do what I expect them to do against Sampdoria. I expect Sampdoria to win. I expect Fiorentina to win, but I think Fiorentina is going to completely rip Sampdoria a new one.
Yeah, which isn't a great thing just before.
Yeah.
Exactly. That I'm just hoping this doesn't end 7-8-0 or something like that, because it could do that. Sampdoria defensively are that bad, and Fiorentina attacking wise are really that good. So I hope it doesn't happen. I hope it ends at 2-3-0, because then they'll get that, then they come against Inter where they have to play for their lives, and I just hope that doesn't happen. Mike, what's your prediction?
Yeah, I mean, we're still a little bit away, but I do feel, depending on what happens against Lazio. Look, I believe it's Barcelona playing on is it Tuesday or Wednesday after that?
Inter play Barcelona on the Tuesday, on the 2nd.
On the Tuesday, yeah. So
Wednesday.
Oh,
the Wednesday.
yes. Sorry, yeah, Wednesday. Yes.
Yeah.
So they've got an extra day compared to what they had to do. I believe last time, was it not against? They had Udinese on the Saturday, but then they had to play at home against Prague on the Tuesday. So I guess they have the extra day, so that'll help going into that. But yeah, I mean, going into it, I believe you'll see a lot of lineup changes. I mean, I don't think it's going to be similar, what we've seen against Milan or what we're expecting to see against Lazio. So if you see a lot of different substitutions, I can definitely see this being a much tighter match than it should be with Sampdoria near the bottom of the league. I would hope that they can scrape out a 1-0 win, and let's keep the defender goals coming, and of course, Skriniar Godin will score in that game as well, of course, right?
Yeah, go for it.
Yeah.
Nice one. Right, let's go to the part of the show where we pay tribute, rip the piss out of, and criticize someone or something in the world of football heavily. Starting with the negativity, this week's Moggi, which will be presented by Mr. Michael Gallo.
Yeah, so our Moggi of the week, I thought once Mauro Icardi left Inter, we'd kind of have to, stop dealing with the off the field, off the pitch issues, and sadly that has not happened yet. We still have to deal with him, his wife, and a lot of other issues. And we've seen this yesterday, his quote, and he said, translation, I'd probably be a couple words off here, but it said, it was my dream to play in the Champions League with Inter, and I did that, but we didn't win anything. I think it was time to go to a winning club, a club that wins titles. The truth that is playing in a club like PSG with lots of champions is what I wanted. Now, I mean,
yeah.
if that's what he said, I mean.
Yeah, he did say that. He did say that because there's video of it. There was no.
So going to if you would have went to Barcelona, I think, or a Real Madrid, or a team with better history, okay, I'd give him some kind of a pass there. But he's going to PSG, who have really won the League One title 6 of the last 7 years with basically hardly much competition. It's usually closer than it should be when it comes down to it. So, and PSG had been nothing but a absolute failure in the Champions League, and I really think that him making a type of comment like that, obviously it's a backlash to Inter, especially because of where Inter is right now and how they've come, and they're now a competitive team. The Slavia Prague game aside. But, making comments like that, it's just like, this guy's got to give up and just relax. I know he's still, on loan and not really a part of that team yet, but just come on. Like, guys got to give it up and, go. What is he? Has he played one game this year for PSG? He's done nothing. I mean, like,
no,
I don't even.
For me, it's like, if you're going to take shots like that, then maybe tell Mrs. Icardi or Mrs. Nara or Mr. Icardi, Mr. Nara, or whatever you guys call each other. But like, maybe you should tell your wife and agent to maybe stop going on Italian TV shows and saying that you want to come back to Inter. I'm just saying, It literally is. These two do not have a brain cell between them. It just makes no sense, and nothing they do makes sense. It's like everything is. They just pull everything out of their backsides all the time and hope it lands well. And there's no strategy, there's no thought, there's nothing. And the amateurish level of it is just, ugh.
And he's not even done anything this year yet either. So I mean,
he got an ice hockey assist for one goal when they played against Real Madrid.
Yeah, and again, you said it yourself. It's an ice hockey assist, so it really isn't that much. So, anyways, that's who deserves it this week, and I hope this guy just keeps to himself.
Yeah, agreed. Right, let's move on to something slightly or much more comical. This week's Frog, which will be presented by Mr. Will Beckman.
È clamoroso! Autogol di Ranocchia!
Defenders, and more defenders. This week's Frog is a defender. But he wasn't defending, he was talking. It's Phil Jones, who plays for Manchester United. He wasn't playing for Manchester United yesterday because he was watching them be turned over by West Ham in a rather insipid performance. They've had a slow start to the season. They've obviously lost Lukaku and Sanchez, and with Marcus Rashford now out injured, they're discovering that maybe letting both of them go without signing any replacements was not a great idea. And obviously Phil Jones was not very convinced by the performance yesterday either, because for whatever reason, I think it was early in the second half, he was caught on camera, saying rather clearly, sacked in the morning. Like, I'm wondering if there was maybe he'd heard some chants and he was telling someone that's what the chant was or something. But if it's not that, then it's a little bit odd to say that sort of thing when it's your own manager that the accusation is being made towards. As I said, it was on camera, so everyone saw it. And then United's executive vice chairman, I believe he is Ed Woodward, who obviously Inter had lots of fun with this summer, turned round and quite clearly said, "We're on camera, stop." So a rather unfortunate conversation caught on camera about the future of the manager who was suffering down on the touchline. There have been a couple of... sorry, go on, Nima.
Is that how things are run at Man United?
Well, there is a slight doubt about this, because there have been some who have suggested that actually Woodward was talking to a member of staff who was sat to the left of Phil Jones. But I think it looks pretty obvious that he's telling Jones to be quiet because everything that they say and do will be on camera, and indeed it was.
I didn't think at all that he was not talking to Phil Jones. I thought for sure that was going right to Phil Jones. Even though he didn't look at him, I thought, because he was right behind him, so it's hard to turn your head around like that. But I definitely feel that he was talking directly to Phil Jones, and everything kind of lined up the way he said it will. I just don't think that's it. And especially that they're losing the 2-0 to West Ham, and the situation wasn't going well. And I was laughing when I seen that too, and it was also funny because it was Phil Jones too, of all the players.
Yeah.
And
the world's greatest gurner. He's got some great pictures that go around on social media of him pulling weird faces when he's defending. It's rather unique talent he has.
Yeah.
Brilliant. Right, as much as I enjoy that, let's move on to something much more positive. This week's Moratti with Mr. Positivity himself, Mr. Nassar.
He works a lot, he's intelligent, and he surprises people sometimes with his ideas. Not easy to find one person of this qualities.
Yeah, so this week's Moratti is a bit of a Matryoshka doll. So I was watching, we've spoken about the Milan game, you're watching the game, and after the Slavia Prague game, I thought Conte handled the post-match press conference fantastically. It was masterful. He took the blame himself, but managed to, make sure that the players understood that he was disappointed in their performance as well. And he said he couldn't sleep for a couple of nights and blah, blah, blah. And of course, the match pans out like we've spoken about at length in this podcast. Fantastic performance by Inter. Maybe we'll live and learn that it was Inter that were fantastic, more than Milan were quite poor. We'll see. But it was, whatever the reason was, Inter plays very, very well. And a lot of it is owing to the fact that Conte was fantastic in the setup and in his tactics and the lineup, etc. So I thought, man, good God, I'm so happy Conte is here. He's done a fantastic job. And then I figured, but man, I'm so happy that Marotta's here for picking Conte and really getting this project, off the ground and translating the new values of the system down to the manager and the players. And then I sat back and thought, I'm really thankful for, Steven Zhang for selecting Marotta and bringing him on board. So I'm thankful to this entire chain, this whole this whole trunk of management that has really elevated the club and this project that's really taking off. And we see the results tangibly in front of our eyes. This whole new DNA, new identity, and it's fantastic. It's really nice to see things such as the alleged fight between Lukaku and Brozovic in the Champions League. As much as the press tried to turn it into something that it wasn't, or tried to create disturbance with the story, it gets contained quickly and brushed aside and move on. And the social media makes sure that they take pictures of Lukaku and Brozovic, hugging each other and exchanging smiles and laughs on the training pitch. It feels like there's so much more stability and solidity owing to these three individuals in particular, and for them, I'm thankful, and they're my Moratti of the week.
Nice one. I agree. Right, that's all we have time for this week. I'd like to thank Mr. James Horncastle, as always, for coming on, and also Mr. Will Beckman. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Have a good week. 6 points. Fingers crossed.
Indeed. And also Mr. Mike Gallo. Good to have you back, Mike. Hope to see you more times this season.
Absolutely, guys. Thank you very much for having me on. I love coming on, and we're going to have a great season ahead of us. No more negativity, all positivity.
Love how that sounds. And speaking of positivity, thank you very much, Mr. Nassar.
Thanks for having me. Always a pleasure. And 6 points indeed.
As always, I'm your host, Nima Tavallaey, wishing you a good week, 6 points, and sempre e solo Forza Inter.